Today I think I'm going to work on this Gravely mower deck here. I did some brush hogging with it. See, this would be yesterday? No, the day before yesterday. And we ran into a few problems with it. So those of you that watched the Gravely video, you'll probably remember this deck on here. And just from me using it one time, so we had this hole here, it has now gotten probably half again as big, and hopefully you can see there's a whole bunch more here. So I think what I'm going to do is cut this entire piece out, go the whole way along here, and then all the way back, and weld in a square piece. This I will probably weld solid, and I'll have to be careful so I don't get any bad warping issues with it. So, you know, a little here, weld a little there, weld a little here, weld a little there, here, you know, just you know, alternate back and forth and stuff. I don't think I mentioned in the last video, or I didn't explain it well enough. This cap here, I had overfilled this gearbox by quite a bit, and I'm glad I did. Still, it was bone dry with oil, and I hope you guys can see this. See the little hole right there? This is actually a breather hole for this thing, and any extra oil that's in here that expands when I'm using it will just come out the breather hole, and that's what it was doing yesterday. So I just wanted to clarify that a little bit. But I've got, since I'm going to be doing welding on this thing and I'm planning on not taking the deck off, I've got the battery disconnected, and I also have a wet paper towel over top of the gas tank, or the gas cap. And actually, I'm going to have to do some welding on this. I don't know if you guys can, yeah, you can see this. This piece is cracked. I hope you can see there's a big tear in it right at the tip of my finger. So I'm going to have to pull this all apart and weld it. This has been replaced before, so I know from the motor vibrating, that's what I'm going to have to do. And this side is no different. Hopefully you can see those cracks. So this, I will probably put the welder on maximum to weld this, and I will probably pull the gas tank off, and, you know, obviously, so I'm not welding around a gas tank, because, you know, that's kind of bad. But I've got this thing all propped up here, and I think I showed you guys the inside of this thing, but while I'm here, we'll show you anyways. So you can see just how pitted. I hope the camera's bringing this up. It is just really very pitted, and you can see the amount of holes up in that top piece. But I just got done pressure washing this thing, and it almost needs it again, but this piece here is getting a little on the thin side, so I really want to get this thing welded up and primed and painted just at the bare minimum paint. That's just what I'm shooting for right now, just to stop this thing from rusting. And I actually had to I had this blade off. I had to flip this nut around. I hope you can see it. See all the pitting on this thing? The nut was actually worn away, probably, I don't know, a third of it. And it was really, really very, very rusty. So this is what the bottom looks like, and it's just really, there's no paint left on it. There's no two ways around it, no paint. So I had this blade here. This blade actually caught the side of the deck back here. This back piece. I'm sorry, the lighting isn't the greatest. And it actually pulled this whole back piece down into the deck. So I was able to bend it out. And I think what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to fully weld this thing here, because this is like it's basically built just like the front. There's a piece of steel that comes around here. And the only thing that holds it is this bolt, one bolt here, and then this other bolt here, where is it? Right there. This other bolt here, and then the same thing like this on the other side. So this is all kind of flopping in the breeze here, and to be honest with you, I really don't like that. Again, that's exactly how, sort of how the deck was, you know, just I don't want to say cheaply made, but it wasn't built the way that I would have liked it to have been built. So I'm just going to tack weld this along here and tack weld the back. I might add some other supports in there also, we will see. So let's get this thing cut out here, and we will go from there. The steel on this deck I think was thin to start with, especially these sides here and the front and the back of the mower deck. Well, would you look at that? We got a side discharge mower deck now. So here I'm just cutting away, or cutting a piece off of this big sheet of steel here. A neighbor actually gave this to us, which was very nice. It was taking up space for him, and I am thrilled to get any flat piece of steel that I can for stuff like this. I use that same thickness of steel on the 5-foot Hyco brush hog that I was fixing up, and it seems to be holding fine. And here I'm just trying to get this piece to fit right. I kind of cut it a little smaller than what I should have, and I had a decent sized gap on it. I need to get one of those, or actually probably multiple, clamps from Harbor Freight. They have like an on-off magnet on them. They look like these, but just bigger. And I think that would hold a lot better than these little magnets that I have now. I would love to get some. Maybe next time I'm there I'll pick up some, or a few of them. But this top piece that I'm welding now, it is very, very thin. There is not much steel here, and I think at the most it might be a 1/16 of an inch thick at the most. And further down I would weld, it would get a little thicker and I wouldn't burn through quite as much. But I think this, like I said before, that deck had been sitting up on its side, and I think water had sat in this corner, and between it being on the ground or in the dirt, you know, leaning up against the shed or somebody's house or something, wherever it was, that it's just getting thinner and thinner. And of course Gravely is out of business as far as I know. The company isn't in existence anymore. And I'm just trying to basically save this deck from the scrapyard. You know, it's really the only thing that's bad on it is this one side. The other side is fine. I am going to fix the front and back, those two pieces that I showed earlier in the video that are kind of flopping around in the breeze underneath this thing. But I'm just trying to clean things up. I did grind off the pieces and take the burr off of this piece that I'm welding in, and of course I cleaned around the welds. But my little Harbor Freight stick welder seems to be doing pretty good. It has a much better fan than my 90 amp one. I'm kind of surprised that they're not selling this stick welder anymore. I don't know why they wouldn't be. It was a great, you know, for I think it was like 70 some bucks or 60 bucks. Something like that. I mean, it was a really cheap welder, and this, for whatever reason, I've noticed the welds on this that I'm welding here, they don't seem to have nearly the amount of spatter that my flux core machine had. I don't know if it's the welding wire that I was using in the flux core machine that made it have a ton of spatter. I mean, the BBs were unreal that would come off of that. And they're really not that bad, that from what I can tell on this whenever I'm stick welding. But I'm just trying here to build up as much steel here as I can, because there was not much left here. And I'm just going around and filling in the holes and trying my hardest to make sure that there's no holes here, because that's just going to continue to rust out even more. I've got the patch for the most part done, and this is about as good as I can get it. Now, I'm sure some people are probably going to laugh at me in the comments for showing this, but these are my welds. Lots of porosity and stuff, and you can see how much more porosity there is here. This steel up here is very, very paper thin. It is super thin here. And this steel here is much thicker down here. So I think this thing was laying on its side, because you can even see by the how much or how more rusted this spot here is than the rest of it. So that's why that would explain the porosity here. And this was been even pretty thin in here. This side seemed better, and this side was even better yet. But I think I'm moving too fast, and you know, I'm trying not to heat this up so much that it warps, and it also will, you know, burn through, because I've burned through 20-30 times already just doing this spot. And helping putting that other stick electrode in there really helped to seal up the gaps. I had a pretty big gap on this thing, and you know, I'm really doing the best I can with the little 90 amp, or sorry, this is 70, with the 70 amp stick welder from Harbor Freight. They actually don't sell that stick welder anymore, so. But I'm probably going to grind this down a little bit and probably go from there. But this deck, this thing is on borrowed time, and we really need to put some paint or undercoating or something on it. Probably just use primer for the top, and I'm thinking of trying the undercoating, or not undercoating, sorry, truck bed liner from Harbor Freight underneath and see how that holds up. But who knows, I might just prime the whole thing. So this is about as good as I'm going to get it. I'm just, you know, the metal's so thin, and I'm using 60, I started out with 60-13, and I think that's for really dirty steel. Don't quote me on that, but then I finished with 70-14, and these are 1/16 of an inch, yeah. 1/16 of an inch electrodes. This was the 70-14. And what are these? The label's rubbed off. Oh, no. This is also 16th of an inch, and 60-13, so. But without further ado, let's flip this thing over, and I'm going to do some tack welds and stuff on the front. I don't know, maybe like an inch. You know, every other inch or something, and go the whole way around. Little by little, not 1 inch and then another and then another, you know, jump around some, because even with me just welding on this, it has warped it a little bit. So, and then I'm also going to do the same thing on the back, and we will go from there.
Here I'm just cleaning up everything, trying to get clean out the rust and stuff. But it seemed to work pretty good. This front piece was even bent some also, and I'm just trying to just get everything lined up where I want it. Some of these spots had they would have a gap, and I was able to pull the gap in a little bit, and whenever I weld it, it creates a gap. So if it was touching on the other side and it had a gap on one side, I would start at the gap and pull the gap in a little bit and work my way around, and then it would even out the gap the whole way around this thing, about as best as I can get it. And it's amazing how quickly I burn through these 1/16 of an inch thick electrodes. I think this machine's rated for 330 seconds, or I'm not entirely sure what the maximum thickness electrodes I could use with it. But these 1/16 of an inch thick ones, I burned through them about 2, maybe 3 inches at the most, and then I burned through the entire electrode. So I figured, since it would be much easier for me to work on this thing without the tractor attached to it, and that's exactly what I did. I had a much more room and stuff to work on this thing. And this was the back piece. It was really very bent up, and I think it was the far side that I had bent in. I mean, it was bent in like 4 inches, and the blade was stuck underneath it. So I mean, it was definitely not good. And of course I'm using all these clamps. It was bent under the deck, obviously, and I had to clamp it up and of course hit it with a hammer. And here I'm even using a ratchet strap to pull the one side in so that I can get it tacked up. And then I think I move the ratchet strap and then pull it in elsewhere and tack it up and just kind of work my way around. And fortunately with stick welding, since I'm burning through these electrodes so quickly, it doesn't really give the steel any chance to heat up a lot, like if I was using flux core and a wire feed machine where I can weld for 2 minutes solid. And just with stick welding, I can't weld that quickly because I have to reload the stick electrode every couple of inches of weld. But the stick welder seemed to do pretty good, surprisingly. I did not once did I have the over temp kick on, which kind of surprised me. The flux core machine can put down a lot more steel a lot faster. And my brother came to watch and see how this was coming along. And I'm really glad I did weld these front and back pieces together. It seems to have made the deck a lot stronger, and I had thought about putting some sort of like a 90-degree angle bracket or something on this, either on the inside or on the outside, so that it would just give this deck a much stronger side to it, especially in the back. Not so much the front, because the front is shorter and it doesn't have as much leverage. A stump wouldn't have as much leverage on it to bend it as it does the back, since the back is longer. But you can see it's getting darker as I'm doing this, and I was having some troubles with the stick electrode sticking. I think it's because this machine doesn't have a hot start setting to it. It's just, your basic stick 120 volt stick welder, and I wish it had a hot start to it, but obviously it doesn't. So I'm doing the best that I can with what I have. So, but yeah, it seems to do pretty good. I'm getting better at stick welding.
Well, I think I am pretty much done with welding on this deck. Here's what she looks like. And let's get my flashlight going here. So those are some of my welds. I know they're not the prettiest, but this was actually my first real project for stick welding. I just couldn't get it mastered the last time I tried it, so I seem to be doing better. Yeah, it looks bubbly and it looks like bubble gum, I guess, but it'll be all right for this deck. This isn't too structural. I mean, it's sort of structural, but not really. And I had to fix that hole also. And of course there's that patch again. So this steel up here is very, very, very thin. I do not know how much is left on it. I am debating on welding the underside of this also where the welds are to help add strength. And oh man, that is another hole. Oh jeez. I don't know if the camera picks that up. No. Let's turn the flash off. Yeah. Oh. Another little hole here. And there's definitely some more pinholes in here that I did not know about. Oh well. This is pretty much the best that I can get it for right now. I might weld up those other holes real quick. But there you go. There's me welding with the 70 amp stick welder from Harbor Freight. So Hope everyone enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. And hopefully I will see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.